What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 11 NFL Power Rankings. And this is going to be a really interesting week because our two top teams from last week lost. We had a lot of upsets this week, so a lot to sort through. So it's going to be a fun week. Before we hop in, a reminder, please do consider hitting that like button down below. It really helps me out. Also subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss an upload. Also check out the Fully Inflated Football podcast. I normally upload this on Mondays, but gonna be here on Tuesday around noon today. So if you enjoy hearing me talk about football, definitely check that out. Just search it on your podcast services. All right, so here we go. At the bottom, we've got a new team this week. The Cincinnati Bengals, the only team left without a win, and they just are so flat right now. It's not like the Dolphins, who have rallied, and I actually, you hate to really put it on a first-year head coach, and the Bengals have a lot of issues going on here, but Zach Taylor has been really underwhelming, and he does not have these guys playing hard at all. In fact, they're playing very lackluster, and this Bengals team has more talent, I think, on their roster than some of these other teams in the bottom tier that have shown a lot more life this year. So just a lot of issues in Cincinnati, definitely worthy of the bottom spot here. And then the Washington Redskins are actually going to drop down a couple spots here. Just, they're on the bye. I think that they've got a lot of issues on their hand. They're just going to kind of exist here at the bottom as they continue to evaluate the Dwayne Haskins situation, and looks like they're going to have a pretty high pick to maybe do a Josh Rosen type of situation if they don't like what they see in Dwayne Haskins. Number 30, the New York Giants. They are going to drop down a couple spots here. They did lose to the Jets. Their offense has surprised me and shown some nice things. Daniel Jones clearly has a fumbling problem due to his poor pocket awareness. Not sure if that is going to improve. But this defense is miserable, and to nobody's surprise. I mean, it's 2019, it's a passing league, and their general manager basically did nothing but add run-stuffing defensive tackles all offseason. Yeah, they got some young corners, but this defense is awful. It's one of the worst in the league. Then you got the New York Jets. Called an overreaction. They've had some real bad losses the last few weeks, but they bounced back this week. Darnold played a little better. I think Darnold, at least looking at these bottom five teams, when Darnold is the good version of himself, they at least have a pretty good quarterback. So they at least have that going for them. They're getting some guys back defensively. They're a little better now than they've been, but still nothing crazy. And then the Miami Dolphins here at number 28. They're red hot, man, and Brian Flores has these guys playing. They've done some pretty nice things on the defensive side of the ball. I've been impressed with kind of how they've put this thing together. They've scrapped together a competent team here. It's unlike what we said about Zach Taylor. Brian Flores has done a good job with this Dolphins team, although now they're looking at not having that top 3 pick maybe. So now we've got a tier gap up, and this week is the biggest cluster in this next tier that we've had all season. I think we're really seeing the any given Sunday narrative play out lately, where there's this massive cluster of middling teams, as a lot of these teams have kind of figured out who they are, in that, pretty much anyone in this group can beat anyone else in this group any given Sunday. So number 27 is going to be the Denver Broncos. Now, they're a little closer to that last tier we just ran through, though I do think those bottom 5 are a clear cut below the rest of these teams. The Broncos have some competency on both sides of the ball. You obviously have Von Miller, and that defense can do some nice things. That secondary has had its moments. And then on offense, it's pretty anemic, but Courtland Sutton's been really impressive this year. He's really been under the radar, one of the better receivers in the entire league this year. And then Noah Fant's coming alive as well. You've obviously got Phillip Lindsay. So this team is capable, coming off the bye, not necessarily an easy out. Then number 26, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, actually going to drop down a spot. Bucs fans aren't going to like that. The Bucs are exactly who we think they are every week. They're going to score a lot of points. Their defense stinks. They happen to come away with a win this week. It was close. So they're actually going to drop down. The Atlanta Falcons are going to pass them up. A lot of people freak out when I lower their team after a win, but it's like, it's not just about your team. The Atlanta Falcons beat the number 1 team in my power rankings from last week on the road. So their win was a lot more impressive than beating the Cardinals at home. You got to take that stuff into account. So, the Falcons, kind of a weird win. I actually took a pretty hard stance that they were going to cover this game, said the 14 points was way too much. Most of us had a pretty strong feeling that this Falcons team was not a 1-7 team. It's the definition of why I do these power rankings. That record is not a reflection of how good your team is. The Falcons have had an everything that could go wrong has gone wrong season. Now, they still have a ton of issues on that defense, and I'm not going to skyrocket them up after 1 week, but this is a team that we know they can score offensively, and a defense that sucks, but, in the NFL, defense can wake up any given week, and they did this week. So Falcons are going to move up a spot. That's enough talking about the 26-25 spot on my power rankings. The Arizona Cardinals are going to drop down here to 24. I love what Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and this offense can do, but they just have too many issues right now to be any sort of consistent, contending team. They're going to be an interesting offseason for sure to see what they want to do around Kyler, whether they load up on defense or maybe they want to address the offensive line and the playmakers here. It's going to be an interesting offseason. Number 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars, going to stay put, getting Nick Foles back after the bye. I'm definitely excited to see what this team looks like with Foles. They're certainly not out of the playoff race. The AFC is wide open in the wild card right now. And then number 22, the Cleveland Browns. They pick up a win this week. They were actually favored against the Buffalo Bills. Definitely shows you that any given Sunday narrative that, record, again, doesn't necessarily reflect how good you are. They're 3-point favorites against a 6-win Buffalo Bills team, and they end up winning the game. So they're showing, a little bit of why there was so much hype on this team. A must-win game on Thursday Night Football against the Steelers. They are not out of this thing quite yet. It is an interesting team because with Myles Garrett, if Baker gets hot, with Odell Beckham, maybe their offensive line plays a little better. It's a team that could get interesting in the AFC. I'm not going to predict that to happen as we sit here today, but we know the upside is there. Number 21, the Detroit Lions, they're kind of running out of gas here. They fought really hard early on as a team that I see as a very middling, solid football team. Stafford right now dealing with some back issues. So they're just, kind of a team losing energy here, but still a competent team. And then the Tennessee Titans, I'm finally going to do this. I'm going to lock them in here at number 20. They're going to stay here until they win a playoff game because we joked about it last week, but it's not even a joke at this point. This team is just destined to go 9-7, 8-8, to lose games that they should win and win games that they should lose just in order to stay average. So they're going to be locked in here at number 20 until they, prove that they can string together any sort of momentum. The win against the Chiefs, while it was significant, it definitely, pushed them up in that AFC wildcard talk. The Chiefs completely shot themselves in the foot that game. 3 kicking blunders towards the end of that game. Tons of injuries on the offensive line, a fumble by the running back that ends up getting picked up for a touchdown. I think that was much more about the Chiefs beating themselves than it was about the Titans getting a win. I think that was actually the universe, forcing its hand to get the Titans back to 500. So we're going to lock the Tennessee Titans in here at number 20 until future notice. Something we probably should have done 2 years ago because this is all this Titans team has done for the better part of this channel's existence. Number 19, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Straight up, it's one of the best defenses in the NFL right now. Bud Dupree is just having the season of his life, a guy that's been pretty poor, to say the least, for his career. He's playing for a big contract, and he's going to get it. I don't know if it's going to be with the Steelers team or not. You got T.J. Watt. The Minkah Fitzpatrick trade is all anyone wants to talk about this week, rightfully so. He's been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. So you're really excited about this defense. I think this offense is terrible. I am not even sure they're playing their best quarterback in Mason Rudolph. I think they're only playing him because they invested in him. I thought this offense was better with the Duck Hodgins guy or whatever his name is. It's just not a very good offense, and you're going to have concerns about that. They're basically the AFC equivalent of this Chicago Bears team here. Granted, the Steelers' defense has actually played more put together than the Bears' defense, but we know the Bears' defense has that talent. So they pick up a win this week. The offense moved the ball in the second half. They're definitely a concern still with Mitchell Trubisky there, but the Bears, not an easy out. And then the Indianapolis Colts, they're very cold right now. They're going to drop down a spot here. I think this is about right. For a middling team here, they can play up to their competition and play down to their competition, just as we saw this week. Definitely going to help to get Jacoby Brissett back, though, which I would expect to be this week. I thought he was going to play last week. Then number 16, the LA Chargers. It was an embarrassing loss against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football. But for the better part of that game, I thought they outplayed the Raiders. It was just Phillip Rivers just tripping over himself and throwing a bunch of bad picks. And, I don't know if that's an issue moving forward. We're going to find out in the coming weeks. Definitely concerning what you saw from Phillip Rivers. This team still has a lot of talent in an AFC that is pretty wide open right now. I'm still not going to write the Chargers off completely. They're going to play the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. And with how the Chiefs are playing right now, I'm not sure the Chargers can't or aren't going to win that game. So I'm not going to write them off quite yet. This is a team that never really feels dead to me, even if they are just idiots and can't seem to win a close football game to save their lives. Number 15 are going to be the Oakland Raiders, who is probably next to the Ravens with my worst calls of the year. And I'm excited to see it, to be completely honest. I have a ton of fun watching this team. Derek Carr, John Gruden. Now, Carr did not play well in this game. He missed a ton of throws. And this defense, to me, is not a good defense. But they did show up a little bit more this week. So they're kind of an exciting team to watch. I don't know if the talent is all there, but the future is definitely looking bright for the Las Vegas Raiders. Number 14, the Carolina Panthers. They go into Green Bay, and Kyle Allen actually played pretty damn well in this game. He throws a really nice football for kind of that undersized, undrafted guy. You'd expect to look a little more Case Keenum-esque with those mid to intermediate or even deep passes. And he just eludes pressure at a really high level. So, he's making it interesting. This team's probably out of the playoff hunt at this point. Unfortunately, they are in the NFC. But, it is going to be a really interesting time to evaluate what they have in Kyle Allen, evaluate what they have in Cam Newton's health, and then look forward to an offseason that has a bunch of solid veteran quarterbacks available on the market. You got Kyle Allen there, you got Cam Newton in the building, and then the draft as well. So it's going to be an interesting offseason. I'm going to kind of write off the Carolina Panthers at this point. If they were in the AFC, they'd be a very legitimate contender, but they're not. Number 13, the Buffalo Bills. This is kind of where they've been for a while now, and really not surprised at all to see them go into Cleveland and lose. Bills fans not happy for the better part of this season that I haven't been putting them in the top 10. Everything I've been saying about them has held up. They have a low ceiling offense. I love Josh Allen, but he's got a ton of flaws, and a lot of those flaws showed up in that Bills game. Turnovers, missed throws. So the defense is great. They're a much better team at home than they are on the road. Solid team in prime position to capitalize here, get 10 wins, and make the playoffs, but I don't see this as a team that's going to really do anything in the playoffs. They just don't have that high upside. And then the LA Rams, really concerning loss this week. I thought they were going to take care of that Steelers team pretty handedly, but clearly the offensive line is a huge issue. Jared Goff, not the kind of quarterback that can weather the storm with a Cooks injury, with the offensive line taking a step back. He's been really bad this year. He's been a bottom 10 quarterback. That contract is looking just as bad as a lot of us thought it was going to be. And then defensively, they just, it's a good defense, but it's not the kind of defense that can carry an anemic offense. So really concerning here in the Rams. I did a video breakdown of them about a month ago, detailing their cap issues moving forward. It's gotten even more complicated with the Jalen Ramsey trade. So, man, I think the Rams are beginning a long run here, a 2, 3, maybe even 4-year run a very average play of a team that's going to be maybe a worse version of the Houston Texans that's very star-studded but has a ton of depth issues, a terrible offensive line. The difference is they don't have Deshaun Watson, they have Jared Goff. So you're definitely concerned about the Rams. They're really falling behind here in the NFC playoff race, especially with like the Vikings, Packers, Seahawks all winning this week. It's just going to make it very difficult. Then we have a tier gap up here, the Any Given Sunday group. Moving on from them, now we have teams that I can actually picture winning a Super Bowl, and that's kind of a big deal. I can't picture the Rams winning a Super Bowl now at this point. I think they're too far out of the playoff race. So the Dallas Cowboys actually going to move up a spot. Look, they were very close to beating a really good Vikings team. It was not necessarily a good loss, but it was not as embarrassing as the Rams were. So the Rams are going to move down. The Cowboys are going to move up. It's still a really solid football team, but a lot of people called me a Cowboys hater, biased against the Eagles, whatever, 3 weeks ago when I came on the podcast and said that I still think the Eagles are going to win the NFC East, and it's really shaping up like that right now. The Eagles are heating up. They had a bye this week, and they play the Patriots this week. That's going to be an awesome game. I do think the Eagles still have a lot of problems, but I am going to rank them ahead of the Dallas Cowboys still here. And then we got the Houston Texans here at 9. They had a bye this week. It's just a team that has a lot of injuries that I don't know if they could have afforded, considering it's already a pretty thin roster to begin with. Deshaun Watson is incredible, a true MVP candidate. So you can't quite count them out, but I do think they are a cut below any of these top 8 teams, as we are going to have a tier gap up here. This one's going to really tick off their fan base, and I understand it. I just don't know who I would have moved this team above, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. I don't hate this team by any stretch of the imagination. Hell, I actually bet on them to win on Monday Night Football. Now, watching that game, they were really punch for punch with the 49ers. Both teams, a lot of sloppy turnovers. Kind of a weird game. It was a really exciting game. The Niners, to be fair, were out George Kittle, their best player. They also missed a game-winning field goal, so it was kind of a coin toss game. By the way, I'm pretty sure that the backup quarterback called tails on the coin flip. I don't know if anyone heard that, but he says tails. The ref says, you've called heads. It's heads. You've won the toss. I thought that was interesting. The Seahawks have better coin toss luck than anyone in the NFL that I can remember. Anyway, just a note. So the Baltimore Ravens at number 7. Got into it with Ravens fans on the power rankings on Twitter. Look, this team, I think, does some incredible things. They're arguably the most fun team to watch in the NFL. I am more than happy to have been wrong about Lamar Jackson, who is a good NFL quarterback this year. But I just still haven't seen this team show that they can have a counterpunch on offense. The one thing they do is really incredible, but I still am not convinced that a triple option run-heavy offense is going to give you that high upside that you need to win a Super Bowl, especially when I look at this defense as a solid unit, but not some elite unit. Ravens fans don't want to hear that. They say, hey, we beat the Patriots, we beat the Seahawks. In those games, the other teams did not score a lot of points. They didn't move the ball well at all. The 2 weeks probably that you did see the other team move the ball well offensively, the Browns and the Chiefs, you lost. So I still think it's a really good team. Lamar's getting better every week. But until I see them say, all right, screw it, this triple option thing isn't working, because I do think it's going to happen eventually, we got to open up this passing game and ask Lamar to throw for 300 yards. Then I'll admit that I was wrong. And I'm not saying that that's not something that they can't do, but I just don't know if they can do that at the same clip as some of these other teams. So let's move on. Number 6, the Minnesota Vikings. A big win on the road against the Dallas Cowboys. They're trying to keep pace with the rest of this NFC right now. They're right behind the Green Bay Packers in the NFC North. Now, they've kind of put to bed this idea that they can't go on the road and win. They've actually played pretty well on the road over the last month, and the offensive line's been better. The defense is kind of hot and healthy right now. This is a scary team that the rest of the NFC just better hope that they can keep pace with the Vikings, because if the Vikings do get a home field advantage, they very well could be a Super Bowl team. Unfortunately for their sake, the Packers are just ahead of them. So then we've got the Kansas City Chiefs at number 5. And we talked about them earlier. I do think that they had a lot of bad luck in this game. They really shot themselves in the foot. I mean, a fumble is always a fluky deal, especially when it's the running back. And then they also missed 2 field goals at the end of this game. They missed a PAT. Like, it just was a sloppy game. So many injuries on this team as well. I still think it's a team that's going to respawn very quickly. And I actually wasn't surprised to see them lose to the Tennessee Titans. So I'm not out on this team at all. I actually still am going to stand by them as my pick to win the AFC. But right now, they just have a lot to figure out. And then number 4, the New England Patriots. They're going to move up a spot here. You know, they're still a team that's only lost 1 game, and it was at a really good Baltimore team. I also think there's some truth, I'm just going to say, to the idea that Belichick, you know, not that he threw the game against the Ravens. I don't think he would ever do that, but that he held his cards a little bit because he knows there's a good chance he's going to see that Ravens team again in the playoffs. Why show tape on how he plans on stopping Lamar Jackson? So that's going to be a really interesting matchup for the film junkies when they do square off, most likely in the playoffs again. And then number 3, the Green Bay Packers. You know, pretty solid win against a good Panthers team. It wasn't an overly convincing win. You know, if they came out and just slaughtered that Panthers team, maybe they would have climbed up a little higher here than the 2 teams that actually lost this week. But you could still see the holes on that defense. They're, you know, not a very good team in terms of coverage, especially in the middle of the field. You can really attack them with tight ends right now. It's really concerning. But offensively, they run the ball really well. The offensive line's awesome. You got Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams getting healthier every week here. So definitely a powerhouse team here, the Green Bay Packers. They're going to be on bye, and then they're going to play the number 2 team here, the San Francisco 49ers, which is going to be just an epic matchup with a lot on the line. Now, you know, I'm not going to overreact to 1 loss, and the Niners, frankly, should have won that game if their kicker made that field goal. The Niners, to me, are still a really, really good football team. That defense is incredible with that pass rush. Richard Sherman's playing really well this year, too. And then offensively, they were out their best player this week. And I do account for that. And their offensive line is still really good. Jimmy did not have a great week. I will say that. Definitely a little concerning seeing him fold a little bit under pressure, to be honest. Some bad picks. But I still think it's a really good football team. And then the New Orleans Saints, exactly what we said about the Packers last week. You know, you're allowed to lose in the NFL. And just like the Packers did against the Chargers, the Saints came out and they couldn't rush the passer against a pretty bad Atlanta offensive line. And they couldn't block anyone despite having a clear matchup problem with their offensive line against the Falcons. It just tends to happen from time to time. So I'm not going to overreact to that one. I still think the Saints are the best team in the NFL as of right now. I expect them fully to respond moving forward. All right, so those are the power rankings this week. Fun week to break down, is a little longer, but I hope you enjoy. I hope you hit that like button. Cheers as always, and we'll see you for the next one. Peace.